Hello everyone and welcome. My name's Liam Marsh. I am the Head of Content Partnerships at the B1M. Firstly, I'd just like to say welcome and thank you so much for attending tonight to see this worldwide premiere of The Power of Standards, brought to you in association, of course, by Bluebeam. And for those of you who are tuned in at home, thank you so much. It would be great if you could join in the chat online and use the hashtag The Power of Standards. I do have a couple of housekeeping checklists just to go through with everyone. So the fire exits are just at the back where you came in, and we are live streaming. So if you do need to pop off to the toilet, please keep your head down and put your phones on silent. So tonight we're kicking things off with the screening of the world premiere. That's going to be followed with a panel discussion and a Q&A. But before that, Fred Mills, the founder of the B1M, is going to come out, explain to you a little bit about the B1M and a bit about tonight. So if you could all join me in welcoming Fred Mills to the stage.
Hey everyone, how are we all doing? Bit better than that. How are we all doing? It's a world premiere. Thank you. Thank you, Liam. When I was a young boy, I always dreamed of one day making it to a stage in the West End, and I wondered who my warm-up act would be. Now I know the answer to that question. Thank you to everyone that's taken the time to come here this evening, and to the many people tuning in around the world right now as well. I am acutely aware of how many people are watching, so good to have you with us. The incredible people in this room shape the world that we live in. You work in an amazing industry that underpins every other business and sector. The work that you do shapes the lives of every child, every adult, every elderly person in every corner of our planet. The trouble we have is that no one really knows about us. So when people think about construction, they think white men working on muddy construction sites, wolf whistling at women in the street. They don't see it the way we see it. They don't see the amazing people, the diverse range of job roles, the decisions being made that shape our cities, the latest technology, the impact that we are having on climate change, and the power that we have to help turn that tide. That is why we do what we do at the B1M, to show the whole world how amazing this industry is, to fundamentally change the perception of construction on planet Earth, to take the industry's best stories out from magazines and trade shows that people have to opt into and instead place them on the platforms that billions of people check every day. My mission in life is a simple one. I love construction, and I want the whole world to love it too. We cannot attract the best talent to this industry if our society does not understand or know about our sector, if they don't then come to love our sector. Now, as a result of the B1M's impact to date, we have the ability to talk to millions of people about the incredible stuff we do. We now have the ability to show this incredible industry to people in every corner of this planet. Tonight is a landmark moment for us as we work with a major construction technology firm to take one of the industry's most inspiring stories and tell it in true cinematic style. As we work with a major construction technology firm who truly understand thought leadership marketing to take something that is dry and dull on the surface and to share it with a mass audience. I am incredibly proud of the B1M and where it's come to reaching this point. From an idea that I had to the world's largest and most subscribed to video channel for construction with over 7 million viewers every month, to working with global brands, to winning awards from YouTube, to working alongside the incredible people who have chosen to build their careers in a company that I started, traveling the world, seeing this amazing industry, all behind a single vision, a single mission that unites and guides everything that we do as a business. We love construction, and we want the whole world to love it too.
Look at these constructions, touching and moulding our lives. To work here is to shape, to influence, to impact. To work here is to make a difference. To work here is to embrace the cutting edge every day. To work here is to innovate, to imagine, to dream, to solve, to make it happen. This is a sector that doesn't shout about itself, that isn't good at celebrating what it does, that many of the talented and best young people don't even notice. This is what happens when you share knowledge, expertise, and best practice with a mass audience in the world's most important industry. This is what happens when you show construction at its best to millions. This is what happens when you stop telling and start compelling. This is what happens when you stop boring and start engaging. This is what happens when you show people how great construction really is and what it can be. This is the B1M.
So without further ado, it's time to introduce that major construction technology firm that I was mentioning. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome James Chambers from Bluebeam.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good evening. I'd like to thank Fred, obviously, for putting all of this together and working with us. And I'd like to thank you guys. It's so wonderful to actually see so many familiar faces around here. So thank you so much indeed. As Fred said, I'm James Chambers. I'm the UK country manager for Bluebeam Software. I have actually, this week marks my 10-year anniversary with Bluebeam. So I'm ecstatic to have lasted that long. It's amazing. But my journey in the AEC industry started over 25 years ago. And it's taken me from the UK to America and all over the world. So again, incredibly proud to be part of this industry. For those that aren't aware, hopefully you are, but for those that aren't, Bluebeam is a technology provider. Our solution enables people in the AEC industry to access, markup, comment, annotate on the agnostic PDF format to get real-time document access and data information throughout the entirety of the project lifecycle. But we're incredibly proud to partner with the industry, with all of you, to really help push things forward and really sort of shape where the things are going in the industry. So incredibly proud to be part of this movement. But please don't just take my word for it. As I'm sure a lot of you know, please listen to some of our customers.
There are times when a product or a process may change your entire approach to things. Bluebeam has been one of those products for us.
It makes us more efficient, faster, it makes us more accurate.
And it's really put us at the forefront of our competition.
We've been using Review for over 10 years. We had this epiphany moment where we realized we could no longer stay with sort of paper world. Review was purposely made for our type of business, and we were able to take that very intuitive software and get ahead of the game.
I think we have had Bluebeam for 6 years now. Absolutely, for the company it's good that we become more efficient, we can bring in more money, but I think it's the people thing I think most about. You want to have world-class tools to world-class people, and I have world-class people here in Skanska.
The first time I saw that there was an opportunity for Bluebeam to really change somebody's life was when I learned that there were a couple of project assistants that were spending 8 to 12 hours splitting apart PDFs, and I had just sat through a Bluebeam training and I learned about AutoMark. Sat down with those ladies and we walked through it and got it done in, I think, 25 minutes. And I just remember sitting there and looking at those two, and they were just kind of like, where has this been my entire life? This has been the last 20 years of my life.
Everyone has access to PDF and everyone can understand. So it's a common tool across the whole of the industry. And it allows us to design and engineer and construct in a different way, in ways that we haven't thought of yet.
Review's allowing us to do all of that stuff and bringing the industry as a whole together and allowing us to push the limits further.
If you get a new hire and you have Bluebeam loaded on their machine, they're never going to want to go to another program.
It's not just about technology, it's the technology that supports human interaction.
I sometimes ask them, what happens if I take Bluebeam away from you? They don't like that question at all.
Is he stuck? He's lost.
I'm back. I was too in raptures. Thank you for that, James.
No, thank you.
And thank you to Bluebeam for helping us to work with us to make this documentary. As I said, we've kind of taken something that's, let's be honest, a bit dry and made it exciting, I think.
Standards? Really? No.
Never.
No, it's an amazing journey. It's amazing to see an initiative that started years ago in America, without giving too much away, and then got picked up by Sweden, and not only their top contractors, but actually the government backed this initiative. And now to see this coming over and starting to proliferate in the UK, I think it just shows what a common need there is for something like this. So we're so proud to be part of this and help working with you guys to move this forward.
Oh, that's, I mean, we're proud to make that. It's been complete loving. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I love you.
We're going to have a drink later. Yes.
We will. I've actually got a hotel room, but we'll leave that for now. Okay. I mean, from B1M's perspective, you know, it's a privilege to get to tell stories like this. You know, as I said, to work with a firm who really understand thought leadership marketing, who want to move the industry forwards, and work with us to create awesome events like this is just fantastic.
I think it shows Bluebeam. We really do have a passion for the industry. Half of us, like myself, come from the industry. We've lived and sat in those desks or stood at those desks in between drafting tables back a long time ago. But we know the struggles, and again, I think it's tremendous to actually be now part of something that can help move and create that initiative to move things forward. And again, without partnering with the industry, it wouldn't happen, and it needs to happen.
I completely agree. So coming to the documentary,
big thing.
Yeah, we're very excited to share this with the world. Some people have actually been moved to tears in the last segments of this video because it is quite emotional. I'll let you decide whether that's because it's a really bad video or because it's like this kind of quite emotive moment that you're not expecting in a Standards video, guys. Yes. I think the Evening Standard review or the New York Times review will say surprising.
It is. It's like the cocktail. Like the cocktails.
Like the cocktails,
very surprising. So hopefully you're moved.
So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, everyone here this evening and everyone watching in every corner of the world right now, we are very proud to give you the power of standards.
Let's go.
Historically, construction has really been underserved by technology. And not to a fault of their own. It's really, there hasn't been technology that's targeted to solve their problems specifically.
2.5 million people employed in the industry, almost 1 million of those people self-employed. It's that stretch, that spectrum, I suppose, that gives us the biggest challenge. How do we get everybody into a place where you can make the most effective use of technology?
As technology is evolving hugely, especially in the construction industry, the usage of the same content has changed. So we don't want it in paper anymore. We would like to use it digitally.
Is the way that they respond to a request for information truly their competitive advantage? Is the color that they use to comment on a drawing truly what sets them apart from the competition? And the answer that they're coming to together when they look at each other and their progress is no. This is not how we should be competing. When we think about technology for construction, it doesn't necessarily have to be the big shiny object. AR, VR, leveraging point cloud data, imagery from drones, all of these things are really exciting, and it's absolutely the way that we're going. However, construction needs something incredibly practical that they can implement and use now. And the reason for that is, as they're kind of the air traffic controller of information, if you will. The designer is creating all this design information. The contractor has to then receive that information and disseminate it to subcontractors who are working in the field. those subcontractors working in the field are experts at what they do, which doesn't necessarily mean they're experts at technology. So they have to take sometimes very complex data-rich information and be able to share it in ways that are easy to consume, easy to work with. So PDF just became this natural, interoperable file format that was easy to consume. Now that we're all becoming digital, it means we actually need to come to consensus and standardize quickly in order to make sure that the digital technology that we're investing in can work at its best capacity. So things like machine-readable documents or automating processes, those technological advances need a little bit of standardization so that the computer can do the work. So seeing the contractors come together to really define what their competitive advantage is, let the tech do the repetitive work, but it's how they bring that project to life, how they solve problems, the talent they have on the job site, the craftsmen who are actually building. Those are the things that they should be focusing on, and this effort is allowing them to do that.
You know, we've all seen the charts. You know, the last 20 odd years, productivity in UK construction hasn't really shifted, and there are all sorts of reasons for that. Lack of investment in technology in a meaningful way is one of them. So if we can collaborate around standards that help us improve that productivity by taking out the inefficiency, then that's going to help us be a more successful industry. Without getting too kind of over-ambitious about it, I think it's part of the answer to the productivity problem.
It was about 2013, and one of our customers had just finished his first fully paperless project, and he was starting to ramp up his next project, and he quickly realized, oh my God, I'm starting from scratch again. He had all these workflows in place, the technology in place, everything that is required to do a paperless project wasn't in place. There was no standards around it. He had to start the conversations over. So he actually reached out to us and said, hey, I'd like your help to pull together as many general contractors and designers as we can to talk about creating a PDF standard. At that point in time, we each called everybody we knew, and we were able to get a group of general contractors together. Those general contractors then sat around the table and said, okay, what problems are you having when designers create PDFs for you? And they came up with 5 really simple things. And it was things along the lines of using a true type font, consistent line styles, consistent naming convention, consistent placement of the drawing on the actual physical PDF page. These are things that, in their mind, would make a world of difference, but just weren't being communicated or requested by the designer. They then said, well, now we need the truth. We need the designer to come in and validate it and tell us where we're 100% spot on and where we're dreaming. And so it was actually at our Extreme conference in Los Angeles that I've helped facilitate the designers sitting across the table from the contractors. I didn't realize how much they do not know about each other's world until we sat through that meeting and went through all the designers' comments on their requested 5 things. From a human perspective, it was interesting to watch because the contractor said, we just need you to use this type of hatch fill. That's it. And then the designer essentially would say, well, that hatch fill is my expression. It's how I express the intent, the materials, and it was very precious to the designer, and the contractor had no sense of the preciousness of it. But the reason why it mattered to the contractor was if they were creating a hatch fill that was 16 line segments in one line, that takes a lot of time to render on a phone or on a tablet. And when they're sending it out to the field, they're one of the lowest tolerances or lowest patience individuals on the planet. So they knew that seconds matter. So when they talked to the contractor talked to the designer about these hatch fills. They said, well, I understand that, but instead of doing 16 line segments, can you just have 1 line segment that creates a zigzag? Yeah, I can do that, easy. Problem solved. Now, if the designer's creating that content in an efficient way that a machine can read, it can render, it can do all the things it's supposed to do quickly, now all of a sudden, all these stumbling blocks that are in the contractor's path to progress are being removed. And seeing the fact that each just didn't understand or didn't know each other's world, and it just took a conversation, was really eye-opening for me. It's not about the technology. It's about what the individuals can do with the technology and how it's changing the way they view each other. And for technology to help humans build trust is kind of a magical thing, but it was a struggle to get individuals to see that and to understand what was at the heart of the intention of the standards. So today, where the Construction Progress Coalition is much further along than where we were in 2013, 2015. The PDF guidelines is about to go through its V2 or version 2 iteration. The organization has become a nonprofit organization, and they've moved on to new projects. When the Construction Progress Coalition really started to gain momentum, obviously I was sharing the news internally within Bluebeam. And we have a user conference out in Sweden, and our customers were presenting their workflows at the conference.
We got approached by a competitor colleague of ours who told us that he was inspired by the talk that me and my colleague Emil did at the conference the year before. As we started talking, we started to share. We came into the topic of design review. He asked us, do you guys have a standard for design review? And we say, yeah, we have one, but it's Skanska specific. And we asked the same question back, do you guys have one? And it's like, yeah, we do, but it's NCC specific. Like, okay, so we started to talk about, okay, what do you guys do with Bluebeam when you do design review? And all the things he sort of threw at us was like, check, check, check. We do that as well, check. And then when we were sort of finished, it was like, okay, how do you guys do design review? It was like, yeah, almost exactly the same way as you do.
And they very quickly realized things that they had considered to be their competitive advantage were really just administrative tasks, and that they the whole time had been holding these processes, kind of holding the cards to their chest of, this is how we do our work. They very quickly realized what most of us as technology vendors learned quickly is you all do it pretty much the same with slight variations. And so they decided to come together and say, well, if we're doing this work similarly, why don't we come together to create standards?
In Skanska Sweden, we have almost 100,000 subcontractors going in and out of our projects on a yearly basis. And those subcontractors also move around on other, competitors' job sites as well. So we said, okay, let's try to see if we can standardize this to eliminate confusion, save time, help each other, train. It sort of becomes a ecosystem. Once somebody has been touched by it, it's there. And when they come around, it's okay. We don't have to train you in a specific way. We do the exact same thing, so that means that they can start working from second one.
And so I hopped on a plane, and in January of 2017, I went out to our office in Stockholm, Kista specifically, and met with the contractors. And for 2 hours, they just talked about all the standards they were creating, the problems they were trying to overcome, and how they were going to solve it. And then they got to this one bit about, but we need a standard for how the PDFs are created so that they're machine readable. And that's where I was able to say, aha, have something for you may want to use. The US already started it. And so I walked through the guidelines with them, and they said, this is exactly what we needed. We'd love to translate it into Swedish and localize it. And we said, absolutely, go for it. And so that's how that spark that was lit kind of took wind and caught over in Sweden to give them their guidelines.
We understood that we couldn't do this ourselves, so we needed to ask around to see if anybody else would like to join in to that first initial conversation. No standard has been created yet, just come and talk with us, communicate. We actually got Skanska NCC, Peab, Veidekke and JM, who are the 5 biggest contractors in Sweden. And then we had a reference group as well with the Swedish Traffic Government Agency, Bluebeam, and some consultants firm as well, like Sweco. We weren't actually knowing what we were doing at the moment, but everybody who we called sort of answered that call, and that just gave us a receipt that we're on the right track here to try to fix this for the industry.
It was incredible to sit in that room with the contractors in Sweden and to hear the same conversations I had heard miles away in Los Angeles, California. And what I recognize is that although we may need to localize and our local markets are different, the problems are the same. The problems are exactly the same. We build buildings fairly similarly. In fact, I remember Jimmy telling me that he said, when you first sat down at the table, I thought, oh, it's LA, it's Los Angeles. Their problems they're not going to be anywhere applicable to ours. And he said, I almost dismissed it before you even started talking. He said, but then when you started going to the guidelines, he's like, hold on, that's exactly what we struggle with. And so for them, they got to see we're really not that unique in the challenges that we face. But what I find is extraordinary is that they're no longer competing against each other, but that they're collaborating with each other to define these standards. It was incredibly rewarding.
There is nothing secretive about it. As we saw in the meeting, we were finishing each other's sentences almost. Due to this, we see a lot more transparency in the industry in Sweden, where people are not seeing themselves as weak but brave when they ask, could we look at this together and do this as a unified force? I think that is, of course, you have the value of money, time, and stuff like that, but on a bigger level you have the transparency, the trust, the honesty, which has then sort of, getting people talking about similar stuff.
Since 2017, they've been able to create not only a PDF standard for PDF creation, but for design review, and specifically design review colors, so that they can all standardize how they're communicating on drawings. The standard has been adopted by Swedish national business standards, so this is actually something that is now a national business standard for construction.
The positive feedback has been great. Won a couple of prizes for it, which is very humbling. But it means that it's actually helping, and that is sort of the driving force that keeps us going and really seeing this as really fun job to have and an honor to be able to represent Sweden in a standard like this that makes a difference.
One of the most exciting things to see is, since this work started in the US and then lit a spark and kind of jumped over to support what was happening in Sweden, we're now starting to see the same spark catch on in the UK. It was actually at our user conference in London. Fred Mills was our invited guest as a keynote speaker. And after his keynote, I pulled him aside and just said, Fred, I have a great story for you that you should cover. And told him about one of the sessions that was going to be at the conference that day, and how the Swedish contractors were going to talk about how they're creating these new standards for construction. Even with all the standard development that's happened in the UK, and I've been traveling to the UK to talk about these PDF guidelines since about 2010, there was a lot of naysayers around the PDF file format itself. A lot of people, especially those who are in the forefronts of what's changing the industry, don't really see PDF as futuristic or as the key to unlock the future potential. But for the contractors, it truly is that. And I was excited that Fred was open to telling the story. And luckily, he did the roundtable conversation about why don't we have design review standards in the UK. And the video, if you look on YouTube, the video has well over 100,000 views. And it's the one video on the internet, on YouTube, that I actually like reading the comments section. Young people just coming into the industry, super thirsty and hungry to understand how these parts and pieces fit together. And so telling stories like this really allows it to go from something super dry and boring as we're going to talk about standards to we're talking about things that people are doing to empower themselves to do their work better. And if you're just coming into the industry, it gives you hope. If you're in the middle of your career, it gives you passion to continue pushing. And if you're near the end of your career, seeing this type of transformation just makes you wish you had 10 years more.
There are things that we compete on, clearly, so we're competing to win projects to deliver for customers. But in terms of the way that we operate, there are certain things that that should be a non-compete, things that apply across the whole industry. So in the same way that you don't compete on health and safety, we've all got a responsibility to make sure everybody goes home safe every day. There are other aspects of our operation that we don't need to compete on, but we could get better collectively. And that's where I think the work on the PDF standard really fits in nicely. It's a great example of where getting a standard across the industry that everybody can buy into just helps everybody. So it's one of those rising tides that lifts all ships kind of thing. And so we've had the likes of Wilmot Dixon and Multiplex and Sir Robert McAlpine and Mace all looking at the same problem. We've been testing the water with some of our supply chain, so companies we work with, designers and suppliers and so on. And the answer's been resoundingly positive. So we've basically just, we've put the standards out and said, look, this is something that's been developed in Sweden and the US before that. What do you think? Could we use it? And the feedback so far has been really positive. My view is probably the quickest route would be to try and go through the PAS route. And who knows from there. So once you've got it to a PAS standard, if it gets picked up by the ISO standards organisation, then there you go. There's your global standard straight off.
I'm proudest of actually getting something done that creates value for the end user. I think helping a peer in an industry that I love to be more efficient and save time and feel, how do you say, more efficient and more digital, and being able to utilize the great tools that are out there in a better way. That must be something that anyone could feel proud about. So yeah, that would probably be it.
It's been an incredibly rewarding process. On a very personal level, many times when I was sitting in the room with engineers and architects and contractors, I was intimidated. These are people who've gone to school for years, who have studied their trade and who have passed tests to be able to have those 3 or 4 little letters after their name. And my story is very different. I actually am a high school dropout. I have some college, but due to financial burdens, couldn't continue college. So when those doors closed for me, I really made it my mission to say, okay, the world is my classroom. My bosses, my peers, the people I interact with, our customers, they will become my professors. And so I went into those rooms not having to have all the answers or putting pressure on myself to having to solve their problems. But I went into those rooms as a listener and as a facilitator, and I made them my professors. And so as I sat in those rooms, I just listened and observed and heard what they said. And because I had gone to school to become a documentary filmmaker and a storyteller, I leveraged that skill set to help them moderate, to help them see each other's sides of the conversation. And being able to leverage my skill set, which in a room of incredibly educated, smart individuals, allowed me to show up in a way that was authentic. By far, that has been absolutely the best part of my journey to date.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling actually, to be honest, because every time we sort of meet up, it's like, did you ever think that this was going to be this big? And I was like, no, not in a million years. And especially in that short amount of time as well, which means that we probably hit a nerve that needed to be sort of fixed.
This is not the silver bullet in itself, but it's a great example, I think, of how we can make that shift, and we need to keep on making that shift. So find the things that we can share, we can collaborate on, and take the industry on.
In many meetings and stuff like that, when standards has been discussed before, we always throw out sentences like, it will never work, we are too different, why would they listen to us? But now looking at what the CPC did, and then what Sweden did, and now what the UK did, we can't speak in those sentences anymore, because there are similarities here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do this. Before you say that sentence, you need to sort of just have the conversation. Start with that. It might not lead to anything. It doesn't matter. But a quick conversation, just communicating and sharing ideas and problems and stuff like that. See where it got us today.
Ladies and gentlemen, I suppose what I should say at this point is that if you enjoyed this video and would like to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, you can subscribe to the B1M, of course. So a couple of people dabbing their eyes maybe, but that bit at the end where Jimmy's like, people always said it's never going to work. Why would people listen to us? But then we pulled through, we made it work, and we can't speak in those sentences anymore. And I just like, Jimmy, it's so good. So yeah, we're really proud that it's out there now and with the world. And yeah, we're just really pleased that we've now got it out for people to see, and to be able to tell that story is an absolute privilege. We've now got a panel discussion, so I'm going to invite our panelists to come up to the stage. You can come up, guys. They all look very intimidated, which is always good. Don't forget, guys, if you are following along on social media or on the live stream, hashtag Power of Standards to get involved in the conversation. Please leave your comments, we will get back to them. So joining us tonight, we have, almost, so on the end there, Joe Williams from Bluebeam, Andrew Gamblin from Wilmot Dixon, Vicky Holmes from Multiplex, and Ben Raybould from Mace. Thanks all for being with us tonight, guys. I think this vision alone speaks for itself. You know, we've got 3 of the UK's largest contractors sat together on the same stage with a construction software provider. This says it all. You know, it's not about competition. It's about bringing people together to have those conversations to help move it forward. So first off, guys, we're going to kind of ask you on your reaction to the documentary. I'm going to go with who looks least terrified. Joe, you always look confident. So.
Yeah, I think what you said probably had the biggest impact on me. That if we can do this, if we can standardize around this, what's possible next? What other challenges can we break through? And a point I want to make is, you know, it's easy to sit in the audience or at home and look at these people and say, you know, these are leaders in industry that are doing this, but these are everyday people that have just decided that they're ready for a change and came together. And it was just a small handful of people that made this monumental change. That's really powerful to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a very powerful video, in all honesty. It is quite a powerful video. As you said, it's made talking about standards actually not boring, which is good to have. But it definitely opens the path to getting towards the idea of the construction industry as a whole collaborating and properly collaborating to work on the things where, as Renee said, it's the non-competitive side of things that we should not be competing over, making sure that we're standardized on that. That's the really exciting part of this. And the video shows that.
Yeah, cheers. Obviously, it gets harder as we go along because people are stealing your comments. But Vicky, you got the hardest spot, Ben.
No, I think it was pointed out perfectly by Rennie in the video. There are some things that we don't need to compete on, and that we won't get anywhere by competing on. And what we do all day, every day, is construct things. Everyone knows in this room that you can only construct on a solid foundation, and that foundation is a set of good standards. You can only innovate on top of that. Absolutely.
I think people, as Sasha said in the video, people not sneer at PDF, but think it's just PDF. That's the easy bit. There's a load of problems with PDF. We've got to get that right before we go anywhere near all the kind of exciting other stuff like drones and BIM and robots and goodness knows what else. So yeah, absolutely. Ben.
Okay, yeah, so I sort of agree with everybody in terms of, collaboration. It's nice to be sat here with our competitors. But the reality is PDF standards aren't for competition. Standards are to be there to be shared. There's a lot to be learned from each other in terms of standards. I did sort of make a few notes as we went through, so I've got some quite good stuff in the video. I think the reality is, and I looked this up earlier, PDFs came around 25 years ago. So 25 years ago, the first PDF appeared. I would be interested to see what they said back then. You know, what, in terms of this challenge we have of change moving forward, how well was it to be accepted? How was it to develop? And we are still here, unfortunately, 25 years later, talking about how the standards are going to progress. In terms of subcontractors, and again, going back to competition, a really important part for me is we share those subcontractors. You know, and the reality is these guys are looking at the same information, very similar jobs, and that's a really important part. But and I guess the final thing for me, which I really liked about this, is this idea of the standards being able to draw out big data, metadata.
Yeah.
If we can sort of progress that and understand how we can use that data to our advantage, and again to share across contractors, then there's a big part of this. You know, I think we've uncovered a small bit. There's a lot to go. Yeah.
Absolutely. We didn't bribe them to all give positive feedback, by the way. They've just
not
just
let them
done
do a
that.
negative bit yet.
No. It's worth saying, I think, you know, the three contractors we've got here are all sitting down with Osborne, with Sir Robert McAlpine, and with Skanska as well, and part of a working group now. In fact, we're meeting again on Friday this week to go through, you know, how we can get these PDF standards that have done so well in the US and Sweden now into kind of a UK format, as it were. We've actually been kind of emailing each other by sharing the PDF, which is a bit ironic, but there you go. Do we have any questions from the audience at this time? We have got a microphone runner if anyone's got any questions. No, you're also blown away by the documentary, obviously. I guess, guys, so just coming back to the panel, what do you think are the next steps? I know we're kind of in the early stages in the UK, but Andrew, what do you see? You were obviously involved in that roundtable. You've got a cameo in the documentary.
Yes.
You're welcome. What do you see as the kind of next steps?
So obviously we have this meeting on Friday to talk about how we can try and get this PDF standard working locally within the UK. I know, as Renee said, we've asked our own supply chain, both designers, consultants, as well as supply chain members themselves, to see how feasible is it for you guys to use this. And the response, as Renee said, overwhelmingly positive. There's a couple of little things that they say, we're not entirely sure how we get around this, but that must be able to be done in some way, shape or form. So once we've got that in place, I think it's the perfect time to start internally trialling it within our own organisations and within some of the people that we go there, whilst also looking towards, as Renee said, the PAS and going down the larger national organisations to get this as a national standard that can be utilised and pushed through. If we can get it put in as an appendice to part of the national annex for ISO 19650, even better, you know, then it becomes part of the international standard for BIM, basically. And that would be the ideal place to go. That's the stepping stone, as everyone has said before. Start small, make little baby steps, and then once you've got that starting position, then you can start talking about everything else that we have that is a common theme between us three here and everyone else that's in this room and probably watching online as well, including overseas.
Definitely. I mean, I know all four of you are kind of involved in moving the industry forward and taking it down that digital construction route, and we know how difficult that is, but at the same time, this kind of almost feels a bit too easy, and you sort of, like Rennie says things like, oh, there's your ISO straight away, and we sort of say, well, this is low-hanging fruit, we'll get a PAS out of this, and it's sort of like, everyone's like, oh, what's going to happen? Like, well, how have you guys found the reaction so far in the wider industry, outside of that room?
It's been good. I think things like the YouTube video of the roundtable has really helped. It's making people feel that if they're not involved in the conversation, they're not helping. They're being left behind, basically. I find that when I go to industry events as someone in digital construction, I always know someone else in the room from another company. No one else in my business really has that opportunity. And I think that element of collaboration that digital and BIM is bringing into the environment is something that we need to sell as join the party or get left behind. So yeah, I think we're doing all the right things by marketing this as something as quite special, because it is quite special.
yeah, we can have that fundamental change on the industry potentially. Do we have any questions from the audience? I won't hog the panel. No, not at all. Yes, chap down there.
I suppose my question would be, I know that we're here to discuss PDF standards, but also standards as a whole. I suppose my question would be, now that we're looking at changing the standards that we have for PDFs, what do you think is going to be the next challenge that we can solve? What's the next file format or the next, I suppose, situation that you're running into? What's going to be the next standard that you turn your attention to, do you think, off the back of this one?
Okay, I'll try and answer that. So we have a bit of a challenge when it comes to 3D, 2D. So one of the things that we're talking about today is sort of PDF and how we interpret it, how we update the standards, and how we have interoperability within industry. One of the sort of moving forward is this sort of 3D world, how we view models, how we take information from models, how our subcontractors interact with those models. So how do we, so you know, the way we're thinking at Mace is how do we start to standardise that? How do we start to make it so all our business, all our subcontractors could understand and interpret models in the same way on every job? So for me, it's not a replacement for 2D, and it never will be. A PDF, as the video said, is a fundamental part of how we work. But moving forward, I think 3D, modelling, viewing, there's a lot of questions to be asked how we start to standardise that.
For sure, basically. In terms of the 3D modelling is 100% the next challenge. And it's not only the viewing and getting people to understand it and interact with it, it's the data that's within it. What's the standardised data that we want to have in there? And that's a question that I think everyone that's in this room and watching online will probably say, well, Revit, it produces the same amount of data that comes out. Depends on how you use Revit and depends on what localization of Revit you're using, or it happens a lot with authoring software. There's so many different variables involved that there's not necessarily a standard. So that is probably the next massive thing that's going to come forward, is how do we make sure that the models we get are standardized with the data inside of them.
And it's that difference as well between a standard and business as usual. We can have standards for things, it doesn't mean we're doing it. So I think rather than creating lots of new standards, we enforce the ones that we've already created, get everybody working to the same page, and then we can develop on top of that.
I think I'm chipping in as a moderator, which I know is the worst thing you can do. My opinion. Obviously, like the PDF thing, I know it sounds simple and it sounds a quick win, and the temptation is, okay, what's next? We've got it in 3 countries. We haven't got all those 3 countries actually using it yet. I just think, imagine a world where everyone creates PDFs in the same way. I think if we can take this from, we need to take a step back, I think, and get this, let's nail the UK, Sweden and the US, and then go to different countries from there, make another documentary called The Power of Standards, End Game, or something like that. It's kind of compete with it, but you can be in that one, Ben. That's kind of where I think it looks simple, and it is, but getting it done on the ground is actually huge. Joe, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I was just going to echo what you were talking about. I mean, think if we went to the grocery store today and the products that we bought didn't have barcodes on them. How long would it take to check out if there wasn't a universal standard for that? Or even worse, if every manufacturer produced something different. That's really the state of our industry, where information is being shared, ad hoc every single time. And as we've already mentioned, the subcontractors that we work with have to deal with that from different contractors who then manipulate that data. And imagine the things that we could focus on, like climate change, like prefabrication, like all these other things that we are more passionate about if we got standardization on these administrative tasks, as we said. So, yeah.
Definitely. Any final questions from the audience? Yes.
Probably this might be a basic question because I've just been in this industry for the past 8 months now. It's really nice to see all the competitor contractors coming together. I wanted to know what sort of an input is needed, or what sort of a collaboration is needed from a manufacturer's perspective. I'm from Kingspan, so
no, that's great.
I'm being a bit selfish asking that.
No, it's a perfect question.
Is that in terms of the PDF standards, or just in general in terms of BIM, or?
yeah, like the BIM objects which are produced as of now, they're all point in time and they're hosted on third-party platforms, which, but that's the nature of products. They keep on changing, so it might not be even accurate. There is a problem there, but from both the perspectives, like you're already there at the PDF stage.
Yeah.
How can we empower that? And also from a long-term perspective, either and either.
So I would probably say the best methodology with this standard is to get not as many people as you possibly can, because you have too many chefs, it's not going to work too well. But at the same time, making sure that you have the right people that are there. And within construction, there will be a couple of companies that are utilised on pretty much every single project and that kind of thing. And where products are being utilised a lot, so someone like a Tata Steel, for example, they would be a great company to speak to. They're effectively a manufacturer, to understand how they would respond to using a PDF standard and getting that within their business. As Vicky then said, that will then cascade downwards, because people will say, oh, these big guys are using it, right, well, we'll start going on the journey. And when you're talking about the sort of wider context of construction as a whole, manufacturers play a massive part. They are probably, aside from the customers and the clients, they're probably the next key subset, if you want to call it, within construction. Because the reality is that the clients and the customers, they need the product data. And so we need to make sure that the data and the models and the information that's being produced by the manufacturers can be passed through us to them in a format that the customers and the clients can understand. If they can't get that, then it's going to be difficult, very difficult to try and get this whole digital revolution to really stick and move forwards.
I'm sorry.
Cross-examination.
I feel all the manufacturers are all on their data. From what I've spoken in events, they're all on their own data journey, and I'm not sure if everyone's following a standard.
It's all about communication. At the moment, no one's telling anyone what they need or what they want. No one's asking anybody what they need or what they want. We all assume we're doing it the best way. At the end of the day, nobody is psychic. Everybody in the construction process has a different need and a different want. So unless we chat to each other, we're not going to get a common happy ground. So I think in terms of whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a client, whether you're a contractor or a subcontractor, go around and ask people, what do you need from me? What do I need from you? And how can we make sure that this sort of a thread of information goes all the way through the process and is the most useful for everybody involved?
Yeah, I think that's the secret right there, right? I mean, it started with one person being willing to talk to their competitor and ask those questions. I've heard standards described as a common language, and in order to establish that language, it requires dialogue, right? And it's that simple. It's not some crazy thing that is locked in a box somewhere. It's just having these conversations, really.
Definitely. Any comments from yourself? But you don't have to comment, Ben. Anything? No. Okay. I think we've done it together. Sounds like a cracking conversation to move to the bar, actually, if I do so myself. Just want to say a massive thank you to our panel for being with us this evening. We really appreciate your time. If you do have any more questions for them, they are going to be in the bar, so feel free to grab them, put a circle around them, ask them lots of questions. We want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's come this evening to support the event, everyone that's tuned in and watched online. Hello to everyone all around the world. And most of all, I think to Sasha, to Jimmy, to Rennie, and to Bluebeam, who helped make this documentary possible. So thanks for watching, everyone, and good night.